back, everybody, to the podcast. This is Better Together. It's a podcast about building bridges in every area of your life. I am Mina Brett.
And I'm Brydon Brett.
And we are here to make bridge building sexy for the first time ever, because it's never been sexy. We like to talk about different areas of life in which bridge building is necessary, which we feel like bridge building is kind of necessary in just about every area of life. But we talk about faith, we talk about relationships, and bridge building. And today is no different. But before we start talking about that, we just want to make sure that we say thank you to the people who are always here with us, to the people who are new, welcome, to the OGs, what's up, and to everybody who's kind of in the middle. Y'all just be watching clips and stuff. We love y'all too. We also want to thank the people who are always like donating and commenting. We are so grateful to engage with you guys in that way. And it makes our job so fun to be able to speak to you guys in the comments and just hear your feedback. We really appreciate it. And we're really grateful for the people who donate and allow this work to keep going. And we want to welcome you to like, comment, subscribe, get on the website, submit topics for us to talk about, connect with us on social media. I don't know. There's so many things. Yes. We're going on a cruise, brettertogether.com/cruise. Check that out. And now we can get into the topic. Yes. I never want to forget those things because sometimes I do. But yes, let's get into our topic for the day.
Yes.
What is the topic, babe?
Well, spoiler alert. You already know what it is.
Yeah, because you clicked on it. Yeah. You're watching it. It's labeled.
It's in the title. So, how a Pentecostal and a Latter-day Saint make it work.
Woo.
This is actually probably the question. That people ask.
We get this question enough. Like, it's not. There is a camp of people who don't care.
Yeah.
Some of you guys don't care. You really are just watching it because you like us, and you're like, you feel like we have insight in the single or dating arena, and you like what we have to say about those things, and you like how we keep Christ-centered in our conversations, and so you keep rocking with us, and you keep coming back, and you really don't care. And then there are those who do, and they're usually in the older camp because they a lot of times just can't fathom how we are capable of doing this when their generation was so concerned about differences, and those differences were usually what kept people apart. And so it's like really intriguing to talk to people who are different and are cool with it.
Yeah.
So there's a camp of people that don't care, that watch us. And I mean, watch anyway. You're probably still going to get something out of it.
Oh, for sure.
And the people who do care, that's who this episode is for. We want to be able to answer your questions to the best of our ability and be as transparent as possible on the pod, which is not the same as you knowing us personally, but it's close.
Yeah. Yeah. I would want to say, I think you're right about there being...
you're about to disagree with me.
No.
Yes,
that's wild.
Yes, you are.
How would you say? Why would you say that?
You started out with, I think you're right, and I feel like there's a but coming.
No, there's an and coming.
Oh
my. What? Wait a minute. Do we need to unpack something here on the pod in front of everybody? Do we need to do a little session?
A little session?
Yeah.
Of what?
Of therapy for our relationship.
Don't we need a therapist for that?
No, we have Jesus.
Oh, Jesus can be our therapist.
No, I agree with you. And I would also say, we've noticed that pattern with religious matters, like
Mm-hmm.
more mature generation, if you want to call it that, seems to see that as more of an issue than younger people typically. And especially around race, that one
Yeah.
particularly, like that one does not matter as much to people our age and younger.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah, we hear often from people our age and younger, who cares?
Yeah.
No one cares. Like I see it even in other people's content. Like people will do like interracial couple stuff, and the resounding comments from the younger people, like the loudest ones, are like, who cares? Nobody cares. Live your life. Nobody cares.
Right.
We don't care. No one cares. And then you have other people in the same comment sections that'll be like, I grew up with da 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 da, and I'm just so happy to see. Or, on complete opposite side, like, well, they were right. You're not supposed to be together, and stuff like that. And so it's just interesting to see, because those are the two. They're existing together, but they're opposing views.
Yeah, and so I would say the end is that I think there's that portion of people who really care because they're in the exact same situation.
Yeah.
Had lunch with a friend yesterday, not Pentecostal LDS, but he's Latter-day Saint, and his wife is non-denominational Christian, right? He has a very intense interest in connecting with people who have a similar situation, because there are certain things that we understand that nobody else understands.
Yeah.
And so there's that. Like, you don't care unless you have to care. And
that's the point.
So there's that. And then I find also, even among young people, when it comes to the religious thing, a lot of people don't care as much. There's more of this centering on Jesus thing, on what we have in common. But there are still a lot of people, if you really ask them what they really feel about our marriage, there's some pretty interesting feelings about maybe not just so much you and I. If they know you and I, then they's like, oh, well, that's Brydon and Mina. But in general, if they hear a Pentecostal and a Latter-day Saint, those are two juxtaposed.
Right. Because, well, people. I'm apostolic Pentecostal.
Right.
Well, that's how I grew up. I'm a Jesus follower. That's what I am.
Right.
Because I'm not really apostolic anymore.
Right. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so I think we have to acknowledge I don't want to label anybody, but just it depends on what algorithmic echo chamber you get into. But if you get in the right one or the wrong one, depending on how you look at it, you can find plenty of young people who are apologists or super dogmatic, super legalistic about all this stuff, and and would look at our relationship and say, well, they're both damned. Like, biblically, you guys are damned, you know what I'm saying? Like, and there wouldn't be even like, they'd feel like they were doing it out of love for us,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about living a little, though, that I would recommend for younger people anyway. I don't know how people get to be a certain age and don't learn certain things.
Right.
And that may be the echo chamber that you're talking about. You're just, just kind of steeped in one opinion or steeped in one attitude for so long that it becomes a part of who you are, and you don't really get to be around people who are different from you or look different from you or come from different cultures and things like that. When that happens, I can see how somebody can get to be 90 and never actually live their life.
Yeah, most people. Yeah. That's so. This is not totally applied to that, but just my mind like automatically associates. The quote: "Most people are too alive to be dead, and too dead to be alive." Yes. Like they're not really living life. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's not really about that.
No, but I see why it triggered that.
Yeah. So it's mostly like word association, but But yeah, there are people, quite a few, I think, probably more than we'd like to think.
Yeah.
But that disagree strongly with our marriage, but then, like you said, there are a lot of people who are open-minded, so I just acknowledge all that. And also this whole social media echo chamber thing, like that is the myth. We have the entire internet, so we have access to more information than we ever have. But because of algorithms that feed you content based on what you view and like, if you don't consistently feed yourself a diet of diversified educational, inspirational, and entertainment content, if it's not diversified in the way that you are intentionally like seeking it out, then you're just going to get into an echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, like look at your feed. It is very rare that you get something that is outside of something that's similar to what you've already viewed.
Yeah.
The algorithm is tracking your patterns and trying to feed you more stuff of what you like to keep you on the platform longer, so that the people who are spending money on ads can sell to you. That's how Meta and Google and TikTok, that's how they make their money. So just know that that's what's happening if you don't know that already. And I know on Instagram for sure you can do this. You can go and reset your audience. What, I can't remember. There's a way to do it. Just look it up. There's a way to go reset the algorithm so that it starts fresh for you and you can retrain it. Try that. I've done it. Like, cause real talk, like I clicked on something that was curious to me that was not necessarily the most positive thing. And then I got fed it again and just kind of, I was like, wait, why? What? Just because I looked, saw that thing one time,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've taken to, if I was curious and it wasn't something that I actually wanted to see, I've taken to just going to that thing and clicking not interested. I don't want to see this, Yeah. And that helps it to not come back up too. But yeah, also, echo chamber, true.
And then that impacts your lens on how you see a diversified world. Because the reality is your world is much more, in a lot of ways, more diverse. Most of the time, is a lot more diverse than your digital world. Your real world is more diverse than your digital world a lot of times, and so, but if your digital world is in an echo chamber, then that's the lens that you approach the real world in. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
Oh, and a word on algorithms. Okay. If you don't like something, scroll. Okay. If you don't like something we say, scroll. If you don't like it, scroll. Don't take the time to comment. Because you know what that's going to do? It's going to bring it back. Your algorithm said, oh, they like this. Because they took the time to comment. And they're going to bring it back to you. You're going to keep getting this content and content like it. If you don't like it, scroll.
Don't comment.
That's going to mess you up. And then people will say, like, I've seen this in comments, in our comments. Why do I keep seeing this content? Why do I keep seeing content like this? Because you took time to comment. Scroll, baby.
A comment indicates to the algorithm that you enjoy the content.
Because while you're commenting, the content continues to repeat behind your time taken to comment. It keeps going. So you've watched that video, according to your algorithm, 10 times because you decided to take your little time and stand on a soapbox in the comments. If you don't like it, scroll. Sorry.
Oh, okay. There's some fire.
It's just annoying.
Are you good?
I see it so much. And I think it's people who don't understand algorithm, if you don't like it, the thing to do is not to comment.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun.
That's why you keep seeing stuff you don't want to see.
That's a fact. All right, let's get into the topic. We're kind of into it. But I think there are people who, again, are against what we have. But, that's fine. This is for everybody. But the question is, how do we make it work? It's kind of habitual to us. In a lot of ways, we have to extract it. It's not conscious anymore. But the Lord doesn't let us get very comfortable at any level before he gives us a new challenge, that forces us to have more crucial conversations and level up to a new level of unity and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I have some questions I think could be good. But here's the first one. As from a Pentecostal, I know we're just saying Pentecostal for the sake of the conversation, but as a Pentecostal Latter-day Saint, like, do we ever fight?
I've had somebody ask me this before. So how do y'all fight? What do you do when you fight? We don't fight.
Right.
If we fight, it's as a united front against something else.
Mm-hmm. We never fought each other.
We don't fight each other.
Yeah.
That's not something we do. We have crucial conversations. We have disagreements. But one thing about me, I learned this from a few different women in my life that, either it was caught or taught. But one thing that I learned is that if you disagree with something your spouse says or wants to do, or a direction, like if you're the wife and you disagree with the direction that your husband wants to lead the family, one of the best things that you can do is go to the Lord first. We did this in our last episode, of talking about going through God to get to each other. When you're married, you still have to do that. God is the filter. He is the center. Mm-hmm. He is on the throne. He is in charge. He is in circle one. If you got a problem with your spouse, you are not supposed to tell them first. You tell God. Because the thing about him is that if he's the filter, what the disagreement is about will be resolved, because what you want to talk about or what you want resolved will get to the other person without the vitriol that you probably feel when you're talking to God. Mm. So you can get the message, because if he's talking to God and you're talking to God, then that filter stands between the two of you, and the information still gets to the other person without the hard feelings, without, the pain of arguing. And some people like to argue. Sometimes, that's your thing. And if that's if you like it, I love it. But that's not something we do. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work for us. And we've never argued. That's not something we do. Mm-hmm. Because you, as my cultivator, your words have a profound impact on me. Mm. When you speak to me, even if you're just irritated, it hits me differently than if somebody else was to talk to me that way. Yeah. Because I'm softened toward you. Mm-hmm. I don't have walls for you. I don't have barriers for you. So if you speak to me in a way that doesn't build me, mm-hmm. I feel it. Even if you don't raise your voice. It's like, and because you have a prophetic tongue, it also is another thing. Like you can pierce me without trying. Like even if you just, playing around, mm-hmm. if there's an edge to the way you speak to me, it hits me differently than if I was like talking to my brother or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing that I think husbands should take into account too, is like the way that you speak to your wife as the cultivator. It can really, like, it impacts her differently than if anybody else was to say it. It's just like if my father says certain things to me, it will sit differently with me than if my mother said it. Mm-hmm. Because he was my first cultivator. Mm-hmm. So he can say something to me and tear me down without even meaning to, because he didn't choose his words well or something like mm-hmm. that. And it's just the position that you sit in. Mm. And so when we disagree, we don't argue. Yeah. We don't really talk about our disagreements. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. In my experience, if I disagree with you, I don't tell you I disagree with you. I never tell you I disagree with you. Unless it's like just like a debate we're having or something like that. But if we're at odds, you never have to know we're at odds. Because I tell the Lord first. And he either changes my heart or he changes yours. I've seen it work so many times that's what I do now. I don't tell you. I've never had to tell you. I just tell him. So we don't fight because we don't have to. We fight the devil. What does my mom say? My mom says, "Fwa fwa." we fight the enemy for sure. We present a united front in that way, and we pray, we fast, we do whatever we have to do, especially when we are facing opposition, specifically like demonic opposition.
Yeah,
absolutely. A wife as a helpmeet is the battle buddy. I've been studying the Proverbs 31 woman. Everybody loves that scripture, and it used to annoy the crap out of me. So I'm like, I really need to understand this, because people quote it without actually knowing what's going on there. And when it talks about a virtuous woman, it's a woman of valor. Valor is a war term. And to be a woman of valor, she has to be a warrior. She has to be someone that knows how to use a sword. And it's kind of understood that the husband is already a warrior. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like you want somebody who's going to have your six, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, we fight together. We just don't fight each other.
Yeah. But
oh boy, I said something that
you disagree with me, so you don't bring it up to me, you bring it up to God. And then he changes you or he changes me.
Yeah.
So you'd be like spiritually manipulating me.
Manipulating is crazy. No, I don't think it's manipulation.
No.
I think it's strategic.
Okay.
I don't think it's like, oh, I'm gonna see if the Lord can fix this. It's not like that. It's like, if I feel like we're not going in the right direction, I need to check with the Lord before I say anything. And it's not even like, oh, I'm going to do this and then see how the Lord change. It's really more like, I don't agree with you. I'm going to go check with the Lord to make sure that I'm not crazy. And if I am, the Lord corrects me and we just go along our merry way. But if I'm right, you just come to me and say, oh, well, I was talking to the Lord and he told me to do this. I'm like, cool.
How often does this happen? Can you think of any specific examples?
I can't think of any specific ones right now. There's just one time when I was thinking, I think it had to do with our move or something like that. And you had a very definite idea of what you thought should happen and you told me about it. And I was like, okay. When you said it, it hit me like wrong. I was like, no, that's not it. And I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I just went to the Lord and I was like, hey, I want to be on the right side of this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If he's right, then I need you to like show me how to support and be like on board. But if he's wrong, I'm gonna need you to fix it because I don't feel like going along with this is the right thing. And I didn't even he didn't give me an answer in the moment. It was just like me unloading my heart to him. And it wasn't too long after. It was like maybe a couple days later. And you came to me and you're like, so, hey, I think it should be this because the Lord told me da 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 da. And, I was talking to him and I was like, cool. And it wasn't exactly what I thought it should be. It was better. So I was just like, okay, cool. I'm down with that.
Okay.
So I could have been like, well, I think you're wrong. I think, it should be this. And what does that do? It gets your hackles up and brings up your defenses. Because anytime, and I've noticed that, anytime I question something that you've put a lot of thought into, especially if my tone isn't correct, you're like, you get this defensive tone. And I'm like, well, I don't like when he speaks to me like that. So I'm not going to keep doing it. Like, why would you engage in insanity when it comes to communication? Like, I don't understand why people do that. Like, this tone is going to get this response from a person. So why do you keep doing it? Why not try something different? So I noticed pretty early on that, like, yeah, I can't talk to you like that because it makes your walls go up. So why do that?
Yeah.
Why not talk to somebody who doesn't have any walls about it? And then I can use whatever tone I want, and he's not holding it against me, and he's not putting up walls, and he's not, questioning my trust in his ability to lead or anything like that, So
yeah, it
just helps to use the Lord as a filter, and that way we don't fight.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
It's good.
What's your take on that? Do we fight? You don't think we fight? Because we don't.
No, we don't fight.
No,
we don't fight. And I'll be honest, I don't. I feel like disagreeing is important. How we disagree is important. I feel like debate is very scriptural. I think iron sharpening iron is all that. It's important. I think the mode can be culturally influenced. The mode of how you argue and debate. Some cultures are way more direct. Some are more passive. We've had that conversation before. But I don't see a scriptural basis or a logical basis for fighting, for the kind of contention and tension that is not productive. Because here's what it does. And so I'm just saying, like, because you said, if that's your style, that's great. I feel like if that can work for you, that's really great. But also I think sounds rare to me.
Yeah. I feel like arguing kind of has a negative connotation to it.
Right.
Like there's, words thrown out and just an overall feeling of animosity towards the other party, and just like saying a bunch of things that you don't necessarily mean, but you want to win. So you hurt the other person, who can hurt the other person better or whatever, or who can hurt the other one more kind of thing. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about when it comes to arguing.
Yep.
But there's a side of arguing that's more like debate.
Yep. And
that you see in like the court of law, where you're just presenting the facts, and that's considered an argument. There's
no creation or progression without creative tension. So you have to have tension. It's necessary. So so I think, I agree with all that. And I just feel like if you are fighting, like, I don't feel like that's sustainable. I don't think that's a sustainable model, because if your relationship starts off as a perfect piece of square granite, every time you have that kind of emotional interaction, it chips away something. And then the next time it chips away something. And unless it's completely restored through forgiveness and reconciliation, then it remains chipped. And the next time you do it, it chips again. And if you don't restore it back to it, you see where I'm going. Like eventually there's a erosion, and that what it was is no longer what it is. It's just that's just how it goes. And so you have to be like very consciously engaged in forgiveness. If there are emotional withdrawals from the account, you have to pay it back. And so that's why what you said, I think, is really important, that everything has to be done in the spirit of building. And so it's the goal for us, like, or the goal of the bank account isn't to keep it the same. The goal is to increase it.
Right.
So for us, like, if we're going to take withdrawals, then we better fill it back up and then produce more deposits. The goal is to increase the bank account. So let's keep on depositing. So building each other is way more productive than taking withdrawals from the account. Sometimes you have to take withdrawals from an account, to pay for things.
Right.
But income, I think, is better than outflow. So yeah, so I think that's really good. Everything you just said there. So no, I don't think we fight, and I still don't think that fighting is productive. And I don't think it's the way that God would want us to interact as couples. So no, I don't think we fight. And we don't argue really either. We never raise our voices or anything like that. We've never raised our voices at each other. Not one time.
No.
So, yeah, so there's that. All right, next question. What advice would you give to someone who's like in an interdenominational marriage or relationship and they're trying to make it work? What would be the main advice you'd give to them?
Don't assume you always right. And that's just, that works for relationships. That works for interpersonal interaction. Do not assume that your way is the right way.
Okay.
One thing the Lord told me when I was questioning something that you had done differently than me was, different doesn't mean better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
Your way is not better. It's different. His way is not worse. It's different. It still gets done. And I was like, oh, okay. And it helped me to see that there are other ways to do things that maybe haven't entered my mind at all. Like I would have, sometimes you do things and I'm like, why did he do it like that? I would have never thought to do it like that. But I mean, who cares if it's getting done? Now, when it comes to interdenominational relationships specifically,
which some people have,
oh yeah, they debate about.
They
disagree about us even being. I mean, both of the faith traditions that we come from are considered occult in some circles.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Yep,
because you're not God. Anyway, yeah, I think another thing that I would say is keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep Jesus as the centerpiece of the relationship. Because if you keep your eyes on Jesus and you walk toward him, then anything that is not like him will be required to leave. Anything that's not like him it'll be something that you are required to let go of. And if you are willing to let go of the things that are not like him, then you will come to a oneness with your person over just wanting to do what he says. If you keep the main thing, which is Jesus Christ and him crucified and him resurrected, then other things will find their place. And whether that place is recategorized or completely done away with is up to him. But that way you can be sure that you keep the things that he wants you to keep and get rid of the things that he wants you to get rid of. Yeah. Keep the main thing.
It's good.
And Jesus be the main thing.
Amen. Okay. What if one person in a interfaith or interdenominational relationship is more dedicated to Jesus or more dedicated to their faith than the other? How do you deal with that type of situation?
I don't know, because I feel like I wouldn't be attracted to somebody who is not as dedicated to Jesus as I am. And this also depends on whether or not they are married.
Yeah.
Because if you're already married, then you have to find a way to make that work.
Mm-hmm.
This happens a lot in people who, met in the same church, where a lot of times in Christianity specifically, the woman is the one who is more dedicated to her faith.
Mm-hmm.
And it can erode the relationship because a lot of times men want the devotion that the woman gives to God.
Mm.
They want to be adored and
Whoa.
put in the place that women put God in. When a woman is like into her relationship with the Lord, she puts him first.
Mm-hmm.
And if a husband doesn't understand that, he wants to be first.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like jealous of God. I've seen it. And it causes major friction in the relationship because it's like, well, I'm your husband. Why you spend so much time at that church? Instead of being like, well, I'm going to go with you.
Mm-hmm.
So dealing with one person being more dedicated than the other, I would say, if you're dating, run. If you're married, run to Jesus. Either way, both situations, run to Jesus. But yeah, even if you come from different denominations, your dedication to Jesus needs to be like on the same level. You guys need to be at least close, because it always will happen where one will not understand the devotion that the other has.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts a strain on the relationship. When it comes to marriage and being married to somebody who's more dedicated than the other or vice versa, it really requires patience and a lot of prayer.
A lot of prayer,
a lot of fasting, a lot of dying to your idea of what that other person should be doing.
Yeah.
Because really it's the Lord's will that needs to be done, not yours. A lot of times you can be more dedicated than your spouse and it causes you to judge them because then it's like, well, I'm over here doing XYZ. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
When that's not the posture that you need to be taking either. So I don't know. That one's kind of a little bit more difficult to answer in my opinion because I'm like, well, I don't know if you're married already and one person is more dedicated than the other. I feel like that's something you guys should have explored and talked about before you got married.
Right. In most cases, it's the pattern's already there, but then sometimes the one or the other spouse comes to faith after marriage has already happened.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of them were.
Yeah, that happens.
That happens, or they become stronger in their faith.
Or one of them falls off.
Right.
Like they started out strong and then they just kind of.
This happens all the time. They get to a faith crisis or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They fall off. Yeah.
I've met a few people who are like in the middle of a faith crisis when they got married.
Yeah.
And weren't necessarily forthcoming with the person.
Yeah.
And once they get married, then they kind of just.
Yeah.
Well, I did everything I needed to get them. Now they're locked in and I can really be myself or I can really feel my feelings. And that's really painful for the other person because it hits them like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
When you knew you were struggling with that before you got married and you were saying, say nothing.
Yeah.
Like I know of a couple of couples that has happened to where, they're like, oh, doing Bible study together and doing all these cute things. And then they got married and the other person was like, eh. And it's usually the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and then.
Why do you think that is, though? Why is it like we've seen it so often where like people will date and the male will be like really into God because that's what he knows the woman likes.
Yep.
And then afterwards, it's not as important. What do you think? What is behind that phenomenon? Like why?
You just said it because he thinks that's what a woman wants. And once he gets the woman,
so it's kind of like the conquest thing. Like,
this thing, yeah.
I got it, so now I don't have to
He
do
didn't
the
want
work
God
anymore.
for God. We talked about that last episode.
Mm.
His primary motivator was probably to get the marriage, have the woman, and I'm sure God crept up to the number one priority occasionally, but in like the primary reason was for the marriage, to get the woman and all that means, So, but I mean, this is just the risk of relationships in general. Like change happens, people change, and so there's no guarantee. But particularly in a situation like, if I were, as a Latter-day Saint, right, and you were like kind of just like wishy-washy in your faith with Jesus, or and I was just like the strong one, right? I think I've seen that go a few different directions, like where the one who's weaker, if you will, comes along with the person who's stronger. They kind of assimilate into that faith, or that person just kind of stays put. They don't go to church. They don't do anything with the person who's strong, and that person has to go alone and live that. I've seen that for years. People having to do that, and then the other option is like they just kind of go the opposite direction. It becomes quite a friction point, So, so I think that there are multiple scenarios, but there are lots of different ways to that it can play out, and lots of different ways to approach it. But a couple more questions for you. Do you feel in our relationship like you've had to compromise in your relationship with God because of me, because of my faith?
What do you mean compromise? Like give up something?
Yeah. Compromise to me, this is my view on compromise. I don't think compromise is good. I think collaboration is good. I think compromise is, let me say it again. Compromise is good. Collaboration is great. Compromise is better than conflict. Staying in conflict all the time is bad. If you have to compromise, one person has to give up something, the other person has to give up something, so they can kind of live together, and live kind of in monotony, in melody. But I think collaboration is harmony. So compromise. So what I'm saying is like in kind of a less than good way, a less than great way. Do you feel like you've had to compromise in our relationship? Or do you feel like it's been all like collaboration and it's made you better and made your relationship with Jesus and everything better? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I get it. I don't think so. At least I can't think of any compromise that I've had to. Everything that I can think of has been collaboration, where the Lord is giving me access to a skill set that I didn't have yet.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so it's positive. Everything's been positive. Or have there been any negatives about being in an interdenominational? I mean, honestly, have there been any negatives in being a Pentecostal who married a Latter-day Saint or a Mormon?
Church is probably the negative. I mean, because I'm used to a certain kind of church, so going to church with you is a sacrifice for me.
Okay.
Just because of the music.
Just the music?
Well, sometimes the women's meeting can be a little annoying, and very, very rarely people have, made comments that were disparaging to me because I wasn't LDS and I was there, which has happened to you too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the only thing that's been like, whew, I could really, really use a boost here is the music. I mean, and hymns are so beautiful. Like, I've gained a greater appreciation for them because I go to church with you. And some of them are just the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And I have a file of favorites now, from being, chorister and all the things. But the music is just, it's just not what I'm used to. And it takes extra focus for me to connect with God when it's that form of worship.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't agree with the lyrics. So there's that.
Okay.
But for the most part, if I look at it through the lens of bridge building, it's all been collaboration and, finding the best ways to do things and embracing things that I didn't have experience with before. Like I didn't really grow up singing hymns, and the hymns I knew, I didn't even know them correctly, and so that kind of thing. So it's been really interesting and really collaborative. I would say I wouldn't say compromise is part of it. I don't feel like I've had to give up any part of myself that wasn't actually me. To live in harmony with you.
Yeah.
I didn't have to give up my part because harmony is singing the same song, different parts.
Yeah.
Sometimes even different lyrics at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I agree. We're a bad case, because we actually do love each other and we live in harmony. We don't really have a lot of conflict. But again, this is extracting things out of us that have become who we are. And so there was a journey to get to this point.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Very difficult. Like the hardest thing either one of us have ever had to do.
Yeah.
So now we're at this point of understanding and where we're at is really great. I feel another layer coming, which is going to mean we'll have to come through some more pain, which I'm fine with. Because I like it. I like going through the pain because I like what's on the other side of that. But I do have one more follow-up question at the end of this that's more future looking, but maybe if I wrote down some bullet points because I had a conversation with a friend just yesterday about all this. And so it's kind of fresh in my mind. And I think there might be some helpful things. So if you hear anything that you want to piggyback on, just jump in. But in no particular order, I think if I'm talking to someone who's having a challenge, with their interdenominational or interfaith marriage, I think number one reason that it works for us is it'd be easy to say Jesus and love, but actually I think the reason above that is because we both are seeking God with our hearts, whole hearts. And so that means as we're going toward that same point, we're coming from opposite ends, but we're coming to that same point. And so we're leaving where we were. So our destination is changing. So we're willing, number one, to change. So that's a big lesson. Be willing to change.
Yeah.
And as you're going that journey, since you're changing, it means you are simultaneously letting go of things that are not true and receiving new things that are. So being open to the idea that you're not right, you don't have the entire picture, approaching with humility, and then having that holy envy for your partner's tradition as well. I think part of what you said there was that your faith has been enriched by exposure to my faith. My faith has been greatly enriched by my exposure to yours. It's not an either or, it's not a subtractive, it's only been additive. And the things that have been subtracted from my belief system are things that needed to go anyway. Right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Be willing to change. Don't think you have it all right.
I like what you said about humility. Humility is so important when it comes to collaboration.
Yeah.
Knowing, understanding, and accepting that you will not always be right.
Yes.
Sometimes they will be, and sometimes neither of you will be.
Yep.
And getting that through your skull is so important.
Yeah.
For really any relationship, but bridge building specifically.
Yep.
When you are building a bridge over a gap that has always been there, you cannot just know your side of the gap. You have to know theirs. You have to become acquainted with the other side of the gap.
Yeah.
So you know where the best place is to build the bridge in the first place.
Yeah.
And humility and communication skills. So important.
Yes.
Like effective communication. So important. Know how that person communicates. Know how you communicate. Be well acquainted with what ways that you can meet in the middle so that you don't communicate in a way that is off-putting to them.
Yep.
And they don't communicate in a way that's off-putting to you, where you end up building walls instead of bridges.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, keep going.
I agree with all that. So I think number one is because we both love God and hunger after him so much that we are willing to do that. We're willing to be humble. We're willing to change. We're willing to let go of what's not true and receive what is, period. So I think that's huge.
Yeah.
So, and then along that journey, an honest acknowledgement of your differences is good.
Yeah.
But then ultimately coming together on what you have in common. So the St. Augustine quote, in the essentials, unity, and the non-essentials, liberty. In all things, charity. That's like the mantra for us. Like everything is approached with love. The non-essential things, we have liberty. We give each other liberty in those things. But the essential things, unity. And what we have unity on is Jesus and love. Mm-hmm. I think any Christian, any follower of Jesus can agree on Jesus and love and build from there. And I think that's way healthier to build from there anyway.
Yeah.
Let me tell you right now that the gift of tongues is not a foundation to build your entire spiritual belief system on. A belief in the temple is not a doctrinal foundation to build your entire. That's not the temple and the gift of tongues. That's not what Jesus said he built his church on.
Ooh.
Right? Jesus Christ himself, he's the chief cornerstone, the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone. So that is like massively important that you build on Jesus, the right foundation, and everything else you can work out. But if you don't have the right foundation in place, and if you are building from a position of a secondary, I call them secondary sacred cows, that's not a foundation for your spiritual house, and that needs to be broken down anyway and put in its proper place. It has a place, but it's secondary. It's not primary. So understand what your sacred cows are, and being willing to suspend those things and make sure that you rebuild your whole foundation on Jesus and love. That's the foundation of all Christianity. So I think that's really important. We did list all of our doctrinal differences, and we haven't revisited that for a long time. We found out what we had in common. We found out we had way more in common than we thought, but we also saw a vast list of things that we had differences on. But none of them kept us from being married or from living in harmony and from focusing on what's most important.
Or from focusing on Jesus.
Or from focusing on Jesus. And we could let any one of them do that.
Yeah.
But they're not important enough to stop what God is doing. There is a hierarchy of importance when it comes to God's truths and principles. So I think you need to recognize that. And then, man, I'm just going to go for rapid fire on this.
Okay.
Don't fight over a future you've never been to. Okay, like we fight over things that we don't even know, like, and we only believe that we can't even possibly know yet because it's in the future. We're not even there yet, right?
Preach.
And so, like one that's huge for us, that was like a huge dividing thing, and I spent hours and hours fasting and praying over it, and I don't know what you did, but I did. But in Christianity, there are. I don't know if it was as big of a deal for you, but in Christianity, you're not a Christian. You're not in a Christian club unless you believe in the Trinity. You accept the Athanasian and Nicene Creed or something like that. And so if it's not Trinity, then you're not really a Christian. Well, you're not technically a Christian under that definition because you believe in strict monotheism. So there's Trinitarianism, there's strict monotheism. And then there's what Latter-day Saints believe, which is called kingship monotheism, right? And I used to care so much about that differentiating doctrine. Well, we got kingship monotheism. that means all the Trinitarians are wrong. And then you came along with this new view that I hadn't really encountered before. Like, well, she's wrong too. You know, you guys are wrong. We're wrong. Everybody's wrong. You guys are wrong. And I'm right because I got this, because Joseph Smith said he saw two personages and this, that, and the other. But here's what I found. And you've pointed it out as well, because you read the Book of Mormon and you've read part of the Doctrine and Covenants, or all of it maybe. You're like, you would bring up verses and say, well, that seems to be strict monotheism. And I'd read it. I'm like, I could see that. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
And I studied it through that lens, and I did so much research. And I'm at the point now where, from the Latter-day Saints canon of Scripture, I can equally defend strict monotheism, kingship monotheism, and Trinitarianism from the Bible, the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price. I can defend all of them pretty much equally. I know the reasons why I believe the way I believe, but at the end of the day, I don't think any of us really know. And there's so much similarity and so much overlap. I have not seen God. I have not seen Jesus. I know people who have, but even that, like, we're still limited. We see through a glass darkly. So an experience with him, like, I went hungry after and searching for people who've seen Jesus, who've seen God. Like, I was looking for that. I've met people who claim that. I've talked to them face to face, just like this, and their experiences don't all line up either. And so I'm like, what the heck, right? And so here's where I'm at with that. And this is going to sound so controversial, but when I told my friend this just yesterday, if we get to the other side and God comes, like the gates open or whatever, and here comes God through the mist, you know, and I'm like, oh, here he is. And God is a purple elephant.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm not going to open my Bible and say, well, no, the Bible says this. I'll be like, oh, you're a purple elephant. Let's go. All right. That's not what I was getting, but I'm with it. You know, that's awesome. That's the reality, right? But my point is, like, we don't know. I'm not saying God is a purple elephant. I'm just saying, like, that's an extreme example of there are truths that we don't yet know, and they're in the future, and we can't know them. So why fight over them? Let's agree on what we can agree on and build on that. It's okay to have differences. Let's have those, but let's not let those things divide us and overcome what's most important. Yeah. And for us, we found that that's Jesus and love, and that's something we can build on, and we can help a lot of other people build on that too. And as we get more truth, we can build on that too. So I think that's really good. Yeah. So that's that. And I was also telling my friend yesterday, you brought it up. Don't get caught up on who's right. Be more concerned about what's right. And if you do that, then you won't exhaust yourself over matters of preference. You won't get in fights over preference. You'll only spend your best energy on what's really true, what's principle, what really matters, what the priorities are. You know, preferences are important for sure. But you and I have not exhausted ourselves over that. I let you have all the liberty in the world, and I've come so far in your direction and understanding the way you praise and worship, and it's blessed me. And I think you've come in my direction as well, but not in a compromised way. It's in a bridge. Like, we're coming to this point, and it hasn't been this like just lateral. It's been vertical and lateral at the same time. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's been ascension, not compromise. I think that's been really good. So I think that those are just some important things. I would say patience and love are vital.
Yeah. You
always said that I loved you to life. And I do the same thing, just for the record. I don't worry about it. I talk to God about it. Let him fight the battles that need to be fought. But honestly, very rarely, I just have this overriding certainty that everything's going to be okay. Eternally, like, we're going to be just fine. I have zero question about mine or yours or Davin's eternal salvation. I know the Lord is merciful and just, and that we're doing the very, very best we can. And if we got some things wrong, then he'll say, hey, I know you're trying your best, but here's where you got it wrong, you know? Yeah. You know, and we'll have a conversation about it. You know, like, he's the judge. I'm not saying, like, I get to, you know, negotiate my salvation, but I'm just at the point where I just feel like there's enough that's unknowable. And there's enough, I think a lot of that stuff that's unknowable that we fight over is just like pet hobby type stuff that's interesting to talk about because it's sound bites, but doesn't ultimately affect our salvation. And I think what affects our salvation more is less in the future and more in the present. Like how we love God, love ourselves, love neighbor, love this earth, how we actually act here.
Yeah.
Are we actually bringing heaven here now? You know, and in my faith tradition, not so much talk about temple marriage and building a celestial marriage. Where I came to on that was like, I know a lot of people who have a temple marriage, but it's not a marriage they want to last. They have a temple marriage that's not heavenly marriage, you know? And so, you know, that's again, a future thing that we can't, we don't know. I don't know anybody who's gone to the other side and come back and told me, hey, eternal marriage is a thing. It's something that I have a belief about, but I think my focus and our focus is let's build a marriage that we'd want to last forever. That makes total sense to me. That's a practical religious application. So I'm just at a place where I don't feel like I know everything and don't have to know everything. And the things that are most important, I think we can build on.
Yeah.
And those things would lead to everything else. And I just know because we're both seeking God with all our hearts that we'll be brought into total unity. And like already in the 5 years of our marriage, we've already done a lot of that. I'm sure that you've seen things that have happened in me, transformations have happened in me that you're like, thank you, Lord. That was a quiet desire of my heart. Thank you. And I think I've had the same experience, you know, where we've become more unified, but only because we focused on the things that are most important. And we've had patience and love, and we've picked our battles. You don't sweat the small stuff. Don't make mountains out of molehills, you know? And focus on what you can control. If you're in that situation, particularly like where like you are the strong one or strong in your faith or whatever, focus on what you can control and be a demonstration, you know?
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to help them come closer to Jesus, then your life better be a walking epistle, you know? And don't get caught up on doctrinal disputes that will ultimately chip away at the granite of your relationship. And make sure that after every, as far as arguing is concerned, don't let it bleed over into fighting, in my opinion, to where you're withdrawing emotionally and withdrawing love from the relationship. Always be looking to build and add to the bank account.
Yeah.
And make sure that if there are withdrawals that you reconcile and there's complete forgiveness, you know, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing in all of this is that you love God, love yourself, love neighbor, that you have a beautiful relationship built on love and Jesus, you know. And if you're struggling with the whole Jesus thing or your spouse is struggling with the whole Jesus thing, just then say, well, we know that Jesus is love because God is love, you know, so let's build on love, you know. Go on what you can build on, focus on what you can control within yourself, and don't try to control your spouse.
Yeah.
So those are just some random musings on all that. So
I know people will ask the question of how we're raising our son, you know? For information purposes, I would say like we're training him in Jesus and specifically the Bible, to give him a foundation.
Yeah.
But he goes to church with us too.
Yeah.
So he's exposed to both of our faith traditions on a regular basis. And
and then because of what we do with The King Will Come, he's around a variety of viewpoints and cultures and religious backgrounds and musical.
Right, musical specifically. We're just always trying to focus on like him knowing who Jesus is, and that he loves him and that he has a place in Christ, and teaching him how to pray, and you know, it's been good so far. And we've had questions where like, oh, how do we, you know, handle this? And really the thing that we just keep coming back to is that we preach and teach him Jesus. Yeah. Specifically through the lens of the Bible. Yeah. Because that was first. So that's
first. And again, you know, kind of, if you want to say lowest common denominator in a sense, we both agree on the Bible.
Yeah. It's both of our foundation and our meeting point. Yeah. And so that's where he's getting his training. Yeah. And his, at least his first foundational stuff. I mean, I don't teach him anything rabbinical or anything like that. Right. You know, it's just, we just try to focus on him understanding who Jesus is and that Jesus loves him.
Mm-hmm.
And that because Jesus loves him, he doesn't have to be afraid. He has power, he has strength, and that his identity is found in Christ. So that's what we're teaching them.
Trying to do the best we can so that he doesn't have to unlearn and deconstruct a lot of stuff. But we're going to inevitably make mistakes. And we go to, again, church. He's exposed to both of our churches, a lot of other church backgrounds as well. So there's that. We had him blessed in your church and blessed in my church. When it comes to baptism, we haven't crossed that bridge yet. We don't know yet. We didn't know how things were going to work out. We didn't have a perfect game plan. The Lord told us to get married, though. Yeah. So we took that step. And when we got to the blessing, we counseled together and we prayed and we came with that conclusion. I don't know. I don't understand exactly how the Lord wants this to come together, but we're just trusting him every step of the way.
Yeah.
And like, is he going to learn the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, those things? We haven't really had that conversation. We know that this is what we felt is right for him right now. He's getting a little dose of that when he goes to LDS primary, He hasn't asked questions about it or anything. He's 3 years old, and so we'll have that conversation when that comes up, Like I'm not worried about those things. I just have a view of all this, that the Lord is in control of this whole situation. I trust him on it. So, yeah. So hopefully that's helpful to somebody out there. If you're watching this and you're having these questions, or you've wondered, like, how do we make it work? That's really it. We pursue God, and he tells us what to do, and we do it.
And we do it.
That's it.
Yeah. And that's how we both knew that it would work for us to get married, is that I know that you're capable of leading me because you follow Jesus. Yeah. And you know that I will do what the Lord tells me to do.
Yeah, I do know that.
So that's how we're able to make it work. Is we are both just following Jesus.
So so there's a trust in each other, absolutely, but the primary trust is in God. And so this is really, us getting married is like a really big show of trust in God. Yeah. That he's going to work out every difference and reconcile them. And in the meantime, we just get to have a great life and enjoy each other. There have been hardly any times where like we stonewalled or shut off from each other, or, but I think we both had conversations where there was pain and there was discomfort, and it causes questions, and that's totally fine. So I would say that, like, if you find yourself in a pattern of talking about differences and arguing, then step back from that and just then approach it in a more organized way and with some more structure, and make sure that it's not personal. Like, let's say, hey, we're gonna have a conversation about this difference. Let's discuss this, and let's not make it personal. Let's just put it in a controlled environment. And then when we come out of this, we still love each other, but let's have a fruitful conversation, because we can grow from each other. But again, you have to approach that from a what's right, not who's right. If you're going in there to fight and the other person's not, you're going to end up hurting that other person. Yeah. So you got to be aligned on expectations with that. But I think there's a lot of value, and so much value. Like your very existence is a question mark for me. You came into my life and you caused me to question everything. And that's been the very best thing I could have ever done for my faith. And I think I've done some of that for you. And I think I bring up things that cause you to question, and you definitely do the same thing. You say things, and I might not say anything in the moment, but I ponder it, for 2 weeks afterward, because I'm just that way. Because I want God, I want his truth more than anything, and so, yeah. Anyway.
Well,
good stuff.
That's an interesting conversation, you guys. If you have more questions, keep asking. We're really grateful for everybody who's still here, for the people who just keep coming back and engaging with us. We're so grateful for you. We want to encourage you to continue liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, engaging with us on social medias.
You good over there?
Social media. All the things. We're enjoying this aspect of obedience, I guess. But we don't want to leave you without a smile on your face, because we know some of y'all just come on here for the joke. So what you got, babe?
There's always so much pressure.
So much pressure.
So much pressure. How about I just do a few?
Oh. Okay.
I don't have like a really good setup or anything like that, but we were talking about like trusting, you know?
Yeah.
And I, in that vein, I would like to shout out my fingers because I can always count on them.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, I think I want to shout you out because I think our relationship, you know, takes a lot of courage. Takes a lot of guts. You know, it also takes guts? Being an organ donor. All right, guys. Love y'all. Thank you so much for the... That was really bad. Thanks so much for being on this podcast with us. Because you're right here with us. Love y'all. We'll see you on the next episode. You didn't like that one? Okay.
That was rough.
That was bad?
Bye.
All right. Hey, I'm so good at sleeping, I can do it with my eyes closed. I'll end with that one. All right. Love y'all. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.
It's better with us too. We're better.